It's time for another Football Manager tier list, and today we're going to be rating the best Wonderkid wingers in all of FM24. That's right, we have got 25 plus Wonderkid wide players from our FMSCOUT Wonderkid list. I've taken some of the best ones in terms of potential ability in game, and we're going to compare them to see who is the GOAT, who are the best of the rest, and which ones you should probably avoid. Now, before we get started, a few disclaimers. This is all my opinion. I'm also going to take multiple things into account, not just a player's potential ability. For example, I'll be taking into account a player's price and availability. We have had some comments in the past where people say, why can't you just rate them in terms of their potential? Well, if we did that, it would just be the same as any Wonderkid list that you could find out there. This is actually seeing them in game and giving my own opinion of them. I want to hear your guys' rankings below though, so let me know in the comments who your GOAT of the Wonderkid winger list is, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Now, we've got a bunch of players to get through. I won't spend too long on each player, so with that being said, let's get into it. We've got 5 tiers here in this tier list. GOAT, which we're going to reserve for one player only, which we'll reveal at the end. Best of the rest for the 3 or 4 players that are maybe in contention for that GOAT category. Good players are good Wonderkids that I think if you sign, you'll do very well with. Okay are the Wonderkids that are maybe alright, but there's probably better options, and could be better are those Wonderkids that I would really just say avoid. Go for these players instead. They might be much cheaper, more available, or potentially just better players as a whole. Now, the first player that we have in this list is going to be Yeremy Pino. These are in no particular order, but Pino has been around the game for a few years now, the Villarreal winger. The Spaniard is a very talented player, has great ability straight away. He is a little bit older than some of the other players in this list, so he's a bit more guaranteed in terms of the quality that you're getting. But for that same reason, he has the negative that he is quite pricey. In fact, he is one of the most expensive in this list, usually costing around 60 or 70 million. When I say price points, I'm talking about the first few seasons. For you guys, of course, maybe in 4 years in your save, Pino got transfer listed. Yes, he might have done, but we're not going to take that into account. I'm mainly focusing on the first couple of years of your save here. And for me, Pino, he's just very, very expensive. There's players with similar ability that are a little bit cheaper, so I'm just going to put him in the okay section. He's brilliant, he's a great option, but when you take into account his price, you could probably get 10 players from this list for the price that he's going to cost you. Next, we have a player whose face is cut off for some reason here, but it is Yasser Asparilla of Watford, who is a very good option, and often you will find he does leave Watford as a free agent, particularly if they don't make it out of the Premier League. But in the first few seasons, he's going to cost you around £15 million or so. I believe he starts off as a 19-year-old. He's got good ability and can definitely play at a higher level than the Championship. He's one that has been good for a few years, and for that reason, I'm putting him in the good section. I'm not saying just because someone is closer to the name of a tier list or on one side or the other that they're better than anyone else in that tier. I'm kind of ranking them all on the same level. The next one, though, is a player that I think is levels above most of the options in this list, and that is Rooney Bargi. Yes, his potential isn't as high as some of the others, but when you consider his price point of only a few million, he'll be quite an available transfer for a lot of you to make. Playing for Copenhagen, you can usually bring him in for any reputable size of club, and if you do, you have got one of the best players on the wing in the world in a few years, and straight away his ability is already that of a very, very good winger at only the age of 17 or 18, I think he is, when you start your save. So he is definitely in contention for the GOAT. He is going to be in my best of the rest category for now. Next, so we have Kendry Paez, who's a debatable one. On the FMSCOUT Wonderkid list, we do have him set as a winger, but I actually think he's a much better central midfielder. He will join Chelsea after 2 or 3 seasons into your save, and I actually do think I'm going to review him when we do the midfielders version of this video. So I'm not actually going to class him as a player that should be in this list. I'm going to put him in could be better for that reason. He is a great player, but again, not very available, and I don't think he should be in the wingers option. I think as a central midfielder, he's a much better player, so we'll talk more about him in a future video. Next, so we have Alejandro Garnacho. Now, this is going to offend some Manchester United fans, I'm sure. When you look at players with a similar potential to him, I think he's one of the worst in that 150, 180 potential range, purely because he starts off as a 19-year-old. His ability is good, but maybe not the best in the world. He is a bit better than some of the other players, but he's a lot older too, and Manchester United usually value him at around 100 million, so I really think with that kind of money, you could do a lot better. But don't worry, Manchester United fans, you do have a very good Wonderkid by the name of Shea Lacey. He's one of the additions to this year's game, I think. I don't think he was in previous editions of Football Manager. A talented young English option that can play on the wing, who has great ability, great potential, and isn't the most expensive either. I think with him, he's usually worth scouting, not buying straight away, seeing how he develops at United, but most of the time he will become a good Premier League level player. So for that reason, I'm going to have him in the good section. The next winger that we have here is Samuel Illing Jr., formerly of Chelsea, now of Juventus. He usually starts off quite pricey, but very quickly his price will drop because Juve don't tend to use him that much. But if you can get your hands on him, he is a good option. Would I say he's as good as some of the others in this list? Maybe not, so I think I'm just going to put him in the okay section for now. I've got to be a little bit harsh on some of these players, else we'll have everyone in the good section. But even with that being said, if you bought the worst player in this whole list, I still think you would get a real gem for your team. It's just that I think there's so many better options out there. Next, so we've got Sergei Pinyeyev, who is a good option playing in the Russian divisions, I believe. This Russian left winger is a small, diminutive 19-year-old who's got pace and agility as well as good crossing ability. Maybe not the best passer, won't score you too many goals, but he is a decent option for a few million. Next, we have Ben Doak, the Scottish 17-year-old playing for Liverpool, known for his pace on the wing. Great dribbling, passing, technique, crossing ability as well. A great option. Yes, he is quite pricey at the start of your save, about 20 million, but give it some time and likely his value will change. The next player, though, is one of the undebatable best of the rest players in this list. It's Lamine Yamal. Obviously, he was introduced this year as the 15-year-old Wonderkid superstar of Barcelona, already playing in their first team, has amazing potential in-game and will go on in most of your saves to be one of the world's best players. If you ran 10 simulations 10 years into the future, he'll probably win a Ballon d'Or in 6 or 7 of them. He is that good. Even on his worst end of his potential range, he is still a great player. Whatever price you have to pay for him is going to be a good price, and in most saves, usually within a season or two, you are actually able to sign him for like 30, 40 million. So he's not the most pricey in the world considering the player you're getting. So for that reason, he goes in the best of the rest section for me. Next, so we have Julian Duranville, a pacey Belgian playing for Borussia Dortmund, but to be honest, he's not someone that I've had much success with myself when I have used him. A lot of the time, he won't really make it at Dortmund and doesn't end up becoming a world-class player. Does start off quite pricey as well, and I think for what you're paying for him, you could definitely do better, but let me know if you disagree. Palmeiras in recent years produced one of the world's best youngsters in Endrick, and they have another one on their hands by the name of Luis Guilherme, a brilliant Brazilian winger. Lots of technical ability, very good physically as well. It's going to cost you 6 or 7 million pounds at the start of your save. I like him. I think he's a good option, and for that reason, he goes nicely into that good section. Next, we have João Rego. He's a great option for a lot of teams because he starts off with a valuation of only a couple of £1 million. Benfica aren't really intent on using him that much, meaning you can get him. If you give him the chance to develop, he is a brilliant all-round midfield option that can create, score goals, is good mentally and physically too, and is definitely one for me that fits in the good section. We've done a Wonderkid to superstar on him before, and he did very well in that. It's definitely worth checking out if you want to see just how good he can become, and there's a few players in this list that we have actually isolated for a Wonderkid to superstar video in the past, so a lot of these I have had lots of experience with. Next, we have Argentinian 17-year-old Gianluca Prestiani, who you can find playing for Vélez, and for about 5 million here, you can get a very, very good option who's good in so many areas of the game. For only a 17-year-old to look this good and be that well-rounded and also not have the highest price point, it is very, very impressive. I would put him in the good section, but I'm actually thinking I might knock him up into best of the rest. I think he's a great player, not the most pricey in the world, and definitely has a big future ahead of him. Because he is 17, good in a wide range of areas, and not really specialised in any one thing, whether it be goal scoring, dribbling past someone, or creating a chance, you can really mould him at that age into whatever kind of player you want him to develop into for your team. So I think he is definitely a great option. Next, we have Ryan Cherki, a Wonderkid that's been around for years at Lyon, is 19 years of age now and still has lots of potential, has a lot of ability this year as well, but for his price point of around 60, 70 million, I definitely think you'd be better off buying some of the others in this list, and for that reason, I'm going to have to say could be better. I'm not saying his ability is less than some of these players, but when you factor in how much he's going to cost and that you have to be a pretty big team to prize him away from Lyon, it doesn't really make sense to me to go for him compared to some of the other options. Next, we have the 18-year-old Algerian Badreddine Bouanan of Nice, who plays on the right wing. He's got international experience and he is perfect if you want an inside forward. Cutting in, he's got great dribbling, physical ability, and also has good finishing and first touch as well. He can also create a chance, and I really do like him, particularly for a price point of about 18-19 million. He is certainly worth going for in my eyes. Next, so we have Andreas Schelderup, who was really good in previous years, still still has good potential, but Benfica have signed him and loaned him to FC Nordsjælland, and often he just doesn't become the player that he did in recent years. Do I still think he's great? Yes. Would I really put him above some of the others? Probably not. So for me, I'm just going to put him in that okay section, which is still a very good section with Samuel Lilling Jr., Pinyeyev, and also Yeremy Pino. Next, so we have Savio, and he's another one that for me fits in that area. On loan at Girona, great dribbling ability, flair, pace, doesn't cost you the most either once he does go back to Troyes, and I'm actually thinking I might buff him up a little bit into the good section. I think that's what we're going to go for. I do like him as a player, particularly when you see his attributes on paper. He is a bit older than some of the others, so he's a bit more fulfilled in his potential, but he is a very good talent. And the same goes for Nico Paz of Real Madrid. This Argentinian doesn't cost the world, has great attributes to start off with, and is definitely worth looking at in your save if you haven't looked at him before. Nico Williams is next with a 40-odd million pound release clause, I believe. The brother of Inaki Williams, Nico is someone that's wanted by lots of clubs in real life as well, if you're to believe lots of the reports that you see. He's a dynamic winger who's good with both feet and could definitely be used on either flank. I really like him as a player. I do think he's quite pricey compared to some of the others, but not so pricey that he's not worth getting at all. He's definitely one for the more elite teams, but I like him. I'm just going to put him in the okay section for now, which, like I say, has still got some great players in there. But when you think he's going to cost you 40-odd million, but someone like Rooney Bargi, Lamine Yamal are going to cost you a similar amount, if not less, I would definitely prefer to go for them over him. Next, we have Alan Velasco, who is playing his football in the MLS for FC Dallas, if I remember correctly. The Argentinian will often start your saves with interest from some of the biggest clubs. He's only going to cost you a couple million quid. A goal scorer, a dribbler, someone with great creative ability as well. I really do like him as an option, and for me, is that going to be too many players in best of the rest if I put him there? He's definitely in consideration. I actually think what I'm going to do is have him there, and I'm going to knock down Prestiani 1 to the good section. Harsh on him, but I just think that makes more sense to me. Next, we have Ansu Fati of Brighton on loan from Barcelona. At one point, of course, he was the Wonderkid on everybody's lips. Now, he had a few injury problems. I'm sure he'll still get back to it at Barcelona soon, but for me, just goes in the good section. His price point probably weighs him down a little bit from some of the others. I could argue that he could go a little bit higher with the ability that he starts with, but I'm going to leave him in the good section for now. I just think if you've got the money to buy Fati, you're probably better off picking up a couple of these guys from the list a little bit higher than him. Then we have Mikey Moore of Tottenham, who is so impressive in game. He's got great ability, loads and loads of potential. You just have to give him the chance to grow. If you leave him at Tottenham, there's a good chance he'll never really get the opportunity and his growth gets stunted a little bit, but we did a Wonderkid to superstar on him, and he is genuinely game breaking at his maximum. Definitely worth taking a look at for you guys. Often when you see him, his valuation will say like £100,000, but he isn't willing to leave Tottenham. He'll then sign a new deal with them most likely that makes his valuation a lot higher than that, so it's hard to say how much he'll cost you. So I'm going to put him in the good section because he's a bit more of an unknown quantity, but I would say if you sign him early and develop him, he's definitely going to push a lot of these players in the best of the rest category. I just think you might be better off going for some of the others that are a bit more guaranteed in terms of what you're going to get. Laran is a player that for me just fits in the okay section. At full growth, he is amazing. We did a Wonderkid to superstar, and I think we labelled him as the next Ronaldinho. Great in isolation, but compared to a lot of these other players, you're probably better off going for one of those than you are him. And then we have Antonio Nusa of Club Bruges, a player that I definitely like. I don't think he quite reaches the peaks of some of the players in the best of the rest section, but usually isn't the world's most expensive. Great pace, agility, acceleration is going to be a nightmare for defenders, and for me is another one that slots in the good section. So then we have the choice really for best of the rest. I don't think it's going to be Velasco. I think Badruddin Bouanani is probably one of the most underrated players in this list, but I think the GOAT has got to be between Lamine Yamal and Rooney Bargi. But for me, as amazing as Rooney Bargi is at his price point, this is Lamine Yamal's year in Football Manager. He is exceptional, a brilliant player who wins Ballon d'Or after Ballon d'Or in pretty much every save that you load up, so it's hard to argue that he isn't one of the best. Can start for Barcelona straight away at the age of 15. That tells you everything you need to know about this kid. He is going to be my GOAT, and that is my Wonderkid winger tier list of FM24. Let me know what you think in the comments, like the video if you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time, guys. Thank you, and goodbye.